International cricket is back in India. Test cricket is back in India after that savouring victory in Australia, and after we had the highs that we can never have from an Indian team away, we now have the challenge of facing England for a place in the World Test Championship. India versus England at home is one of the marquee contests in international cricket. So it's time to kick off ESPN Cricket for Match Day, powered by Realme X7 Pro and X7 5G Pro. So Gautam Gambhir and Ian Bell are with me. It's time to hand out a debut cap to Ian Bell on ESPN Cricket for Match Day. Gautam Gambhir is a seasoned veteran here. They've both been part of fierce India-England rivalries. They know what it's like when this sort of opposition comes down. And let's start with you, Ian Bell. Welcome at 3 a.m. on somewhere in the outskirts of Birmingham. It's time. It's some start for you.
Yeah, good morning, guys. Yeah, really excited. It's as you said, these series are huge, and an England tour to India is the pinnacle. Obviously, I was very lucky to be part of a team that won there. Always challenging, got beaten a lot there, quite convincingly as well. So these are huge tours, massive test matches, and I'm really excited to see how the guys get on. It's a young side, improving test side, but this is a completely different challenge to what the guys have had over the last 18 months.
It's been a couple of weeks since those highs of that series and test win in Australia, Gautam. In that time, we've seen England notch up a very impressive series win of their own in Sri Lanka. So these are two teams in form now, and there is that added incentive of a place in the World Test Championship final on the line. What are you expecting from this series?
Oh, absolutely. And like Jasin mentioned, that it's going to be a good series, a very exciting series. Plus, there's something to play for as well. Both the sides are in contention to qualify for the World Test Championship final. So I'm really looking forward to it. And especially when India is on a high, beating Australia in Australia. So, but this is going to be a completely different challenge because wickets will be different, opposition will be different, opposition plays very differently. So it's going to be a challenge for both bowlers and batters as well. How quickly do they adjust to Indian conditions? And probably England will be slightly better from the conditions point of view because they've already played 2 test matches in Sri Lanka, very similar conditions to what you will get at Chippewa. But India will probably have to adjust a little quicker as compared to England.
Yeah, these are different times. We're going to have 2 home tests back to back at one venue, then 2 in another. There are domestic officials or local officials now, and we get used to what cricket is like in this post-COVID or post-lockdown world. But Joe Root, it's a milestone moment for him. It's his 100th test match, and he started it well by winning the toss at the Chepauk. England are going to bat first. Now, the start of a big series coming to India. Ian, you've been to India, no less than 3 times. You know what it's like to start off a series here. You've ended up on the right side of it too. How important is it to just win that first toss and think, okay, this has gone our way now?
Oh, 100%. Winning the toss is firstly just what England wanted. As Gautam's already said there, they've preparation-wise, it couldn't have gone any better for them. They've had 2 tests in Sri Lanka. You get there in that first match against India, they've got the opportunity now to get on the wicket first. And now it's just up to all the team meetings they would have had, all the planning they would have talked. Now we have to score 450 plus, or certainly 400. To try and put India under pressure. So yes, they've done the first thing right, win the toss. Now it's about the actions, and can that batting unit now deliver a score to help the bowlers? But it's going to be a challenge. There's no doubt. This Indian side is on a high. They're going to be, even to pick the 11, it's hard. The squad depth is huge, so the challenge is going to be massive for England. But first bit's done, and now it's about getting out there and batting for long periods of time, not just the runs, but batting for a long period of time.
All right. On the other hand, there is the theme of Australia continues to stay with India even in their home season. There is an injury on the morning of the series, and Akshar Patel is unfortunately ruled out of the first test match, which is an interesting one, Gautam, because in our preview chat, we're reading a lot as well about this equation of England's batsman versus left-arm orthodox spin. That's perhaps the reason Akshar Patel was drafted into this squad initially ahead of a Shahbaz Nadeem. Nadeem, of course, has been added to the squad, and I believe he's making the 11s. But we'll just confirm that in a second. Though, just on the Akshar Patel injury, you saw that he would have got a cap had he been fit.
100%. It should have been a like-to-like replacement for Ravindra Jadeja. Plus, he adds depth to the batting lineup as well. Someone who can bowl tight, he can bat at number 7. Ashwin bats at number 8. So he gives you that stability. He gives you that extra batting. So if Nadeem plays, obviously it's going to be a big test for Nadeem because obviously he would be playing a second test match, and he's different to what Akshar Patel is. Akshar bowls much quicker to what Nadeem does. He's more accurate. He bowls very similar to someone like Ravindra Jadeja. So obviously a huge loss. Plus, if you see the overall combination, I would have definitely given Akshar Patel a cap, especially in Chennai, because if he's bowling in the 3rd inning or the 4th inning, he can actually be a great asset. But then again, an injury is someone else's opportunity. Hopefully, if Nadeem plays, he does really well, because obviously spin will come into play very quickly in Chennai.
Yeah, he's gotten used to this drill, perhaps, of just being drafted in last minute. Is Shahbaz Nadeem. That's how he got his Test debut cap when he played against South Africa. But he is part of the 11 now, and as we confirm, India is 11 first up. Virat Kohli says at the toss, of course, returning from paternity leave, that I am back. Ishant Sharma is back. Jasprit Bumrah is back. It is a completely different lineup to that 4th Test in Brisbane. The Washington Sundar does keep his place, so it's a debut at his home stadium for Washington Sundar in what will be just his 2nd Test match. Rishabh Pant was confirmed in the press conference yesterday itself, and the batting pretty much picks itself. Gill, Sharma, Pujara, Kohli and Rahane. So that's an interesting combination they've gone for. Gautam, your first thoughts? That 2 seamers in Bumrah and Ishant, and Bumrah first playing his first home Test, and you've got 3 spinners in Washington Sundar, Ashwin and Shahbaz Nadeem, so no Kuldeep Yadav. Thoughts on that, Gautam?
A little unfortunate on Kuldeep, to be honest. I thought they should have actually picked Kuldeep against England. A wrist spinner, left-arm wrist spinner, which is a very rare commodity. He's been with the team. He hasn't played any cricket. So Kuldeep would have been a great asset. And you want to use him first up in the series as well. You don't want to wait for Kuldeep Yadav to be actually probably picking him in the 2nd or the 3rd Test match. Because a lot of times we've seen that how a wrist spinner can actually turn the game as well. So it's a little unfortunate and a bit surprised as well that they'll be playing with 2 off spinners. Yes, probably because they want a little bit more depth in the batting at number 7 and number 8. And again, a big surprise was probably Ishant Sharma, because he hasn't played a lot of red ball cricket lately, and Siraj has been in fabulous form. And playing T20 cricket after an injury and then playing a Test match is a completely different ball game when you have to bowl 17, 18 overs a day, and when you're playing only 2 seamers. So let's see how he goes. Obviously, he's got the experience, but whether he's got that rhythm, whether he's got that bowling fitness, we have to wait and watch. Plus, a massive surprise, because I would have definitely picked Kuldeep any day. Yes, you want a left-arm spinner. Plus, Kuldeep would have given you that attacking option when especially the batter is set. And against both, whether it's a right-hander or a left-hander, it really doesn't matter when you've got a wrist spinner who can take the ball both ways. So let's see how India goes.
All right, let's go to Ian Bell on thoughts on that. We discussed this, and you said as well, Belly, someone who's faced Akshar Patel, that you would have liked to see him play. So you would have gone for the left-arm orthodox spin. But when he's ruled out now, I'm trying to think whether Washington Sundar was always going to play. So Nadeem is going to come in as your left-arm spinner. So the plan was always that Kuldeep Yadav doesn't quite make it. You don't want the left-arm wrist spin against the left-arm orthodox spin. What would you have rather faced if you were an England batsman?
Yeah, I think, again, like you said, it's probably the balance at that side. I think if Akshar Patel was fit, you get the feeling he would have played, or Jadeja was fit, he would have played. So I think for me personally, again, I would have preferred maybe to have 2 off spinners, getting that rhythm of the ball turning the same way. As Gautam said, if you could have a wrist spinner with a left arm spinner and an off spinner, your balance of your attack and all options and attacking options are there. But again, this is it's going to be fascinating to see how England go about this. But there's no doubt, I think, watching from Sri Lanka, left arm spin certainly caused the top order much more problems than maybe the ball turning in. We are talking about a different level of quality of spin now, certainly with Ashwin. So it'll be fascinating to see how they go about it. They're going to have to find ways of, one, being good in defence, picking length, but also trying to put pressure back on them and scoring in a positive way.
See, just want to add one thing. England has played a lot of left-arm spin in the last 2 Test matches. They haven't played a lot of wrist spin. So probably, and especially a left-arm Chinaman. So Kuldeep would have been a great asset, especially against someone like Joe Root, who plays left-arm spin really well. So someone who hasn't actually played Kuldeep a lot could have been an attacking option. But let's see how Nadeem goes. I would have definitely picked Kuldeep in all the 4 Test matches.
Virat Kohli said at the pre-series, pre-match press conference, Kuldeep is a part of the home series plans, a big part of those plans now. He is in the squad. It's been a very interesting, 18 months or so, maybe a tough 18 months for Kuldeep Yadav, Gautam. He's found his way out of the white ball teams. He didn't feature much for the Knight Riders in the IPL, played that entire series, one of the only players who didn't play in any of those Test matches. Now, it's perhaps a call on balance and combination and whatnot. But how do you manage a player like Kuldeep Yadav right now, who not long back by Ravi Shastri was touted as the premier spinner overseas?
Tough. I think things change very quickly in international cricket, as we all know. But then again, tough. Someone who's part of the squad hasn't got an opportunity, and someone from behind comes and actually cements his place, which is little, especially unfortunate for a young spinner when he's done really well. 6 matches, 24 wickets. What more do you expect from a young Chinaman, and then especially when I'm sure he would have been looking for this series, especially at home when he knows that the conditions will be in favor of the spinners, and suddenly Nadeem comes and he plays, and Washington Sundar, who was actually not part of the Test squad, and suddenly he comes and plays a second Test match, and someone who's been part for last 2 years doesn't get an opportunity. So it's difficult for you to keep motivation, because you can keep bowling in the nets, and when you know that obviously you're not part of the scheme, you're obviously part of the squad, but then not part of the playing 11, it gets tough. Hopefully he keeps his confidence high, because whenever you get that opportunity, he has to do well. And he needs to remember one thing, that he's not the number one, number two spinner anymore. He's only the number third spinner to become a number one and number two spinner. Whenever he gets that opportunity, he has to deliver.
All right. The other point on the Indian team, we'll come to that in a bit. Maybe we'll just move on to the England team and confirm 11th for you first up. And there are 4 changes from that second test in Sri Lanka. It was won so impressively by England, 2-0 series win for them. Now, Joe Root couldn't remember all of them. The one he missed out, I think, was Ollie Pope, who comes in. There's a late injury to Zach Crawley. Whether Pope would have played anywhere would have been anyone's guess. Would he bat 3 and Dan Lawrence in the middle? I'll go to Ian Bell with that in just a second. But Ben Stokes returns, so out goes Sam Curran. There's, of course, room for Jofra Archer, who joins this side. And they've stuck with James Anderson and not gone back to Stuart Broad. Anderson did play that second test and was terrific with that 6-wicket haul in the first innings. Thoughts on that, team, Belly? Expected lines, those changes?
I think certainly expected that. I think when Crawley was injured, that Root probably wouldn't go to 4 and somebody would slot in at that 3 position. Whether it was Pope or whether it was Lawrence, it doesn't really matter. The fact that Lawrence probably showed in Sri Lanka that he has a decent technique to spin and his footwork was good. He's already played 2 test matches, so he gets the nod at 3. Surprising, again, we talked a lot about Broad, Anderson. Do they play together? And the fact that Broad has really developed a nice leg cutter now, and the way he's bowled in Sri Lanka. But again, both of them, they've probably got a plan here. They're going to play 2 each. But again, your first test match against India, you want to pick your best side that you think could go in. But England have a plan. They're going to rotate their squad in and out of this bubble. And it looks like they're going to stick to the plan with Broad, one of them playing and one of them playing 2 test matches each. But I think it's good to see Jofra back. Obviously good to see Stokes back from an England point of view. I think the presence that those guys bring to that team is huge, particularly Ben Stokes.
Yeah, it's that balance with Ben Stokes comes into this bowling attack. You've got Anderson and Archer with Ben Stokes and the 2 spinners in Leach and Best. Is that England's best bowling lineup? You started with your best bowling lineup. Does that not feature Stuart Broad? We saw those numbers in India right now. Anderson's got better numbers than Broad in India. So is this England's best bowling attack for you?
Look, I think it is one or the other at the moment. I think, obviously, again, in English conditions, they both play together. But again, on flat wickets, on good pitches, you're going to need a variety, need different options of spin. England's spin at the moment is nowhere near as good as India's spin, so it's not going to be flat out. We're not just going to win it by bowling spin. We need extra bit of pace with Jofra, and obviously Ben Stokes. We know generally when things get pretty flat or there's no wickets, Joe Root generally turns to Ben Stokes for a wicket. So he's a bit of a golden arm when it comes to that. Or if there's any reverse swing, he's generally the guy that will go and find that. So it probably is England's best attack. But again, you could replace Broad, Anderson light for light and still not lose too much. They'll both give you the control, and then they'll be the leader of that attack on the field. But again, fascinating to see how it goes. But England, like I said, have done the right thing. Just now they've got to get the runs on the board to give that bowling attack any chance of doing anything in this match.
All right. We've got an England team. Of course, they've got the all-rounder and Ben Stokes, but they've essentially got 3 seamers, 2 spinners. India's decision to play 3 spinners. Is that a reflection of what they see in the surface, which in the build-up to this test match, Gautam, we're hearing from the new curator, would have had a bit of green or a bit of grass on it, would have had an English sort of feel. Doesn't look very English on the morning of the test match.
Yeah, not surprised at all, because I don't think so they would ever, in Chennai, you would get a green top, especially conditions like England. Never at Chipok. So obviously 3 spinners is the right decision as well. And obviously that is India's strength again. India thinks that obviously they can actually put that pressure on English batters with the spin, and plus they've got Jasprit Bumrah as well. Jasprit Bumrah is a guy who doesn't need conditions. He can bowl well with the new ball, he can bowl well with the old ball as well. So he takes the conditions out of the game, and it's very similar to someone like Jofra Archer. He's quick in the air. He will get something off the surface even if there is nothing happening. So obviously India's biggest strength will obviously be a spin. in, and they've got two off spinners now, very similar bowls, really tight and bowls wicket to wicket, and then they've got a left-arm spinner. So obviously, that is why it was an important toss for England to win. And if England can put 400 runs on the board, obviously they'll give something to the bowlers to actually try and bowl at. But anything less than 350, obviously it's difficult for England actually, because against this kind of Indian batting lineup.
Yeah, that's the other thing, right? As good as Joe Root was in Sri Lanka, in one of the things they'd want is to try and post big scores, try and take significant advantage in India. And you know how important that is, having toured here in the past. That's one thing that did stay away from them. They couldn't get those big 450s, even though Joe Root was pretty much getting half the runs.
Yeah, that would be, I think, even though there were so many positives to come out of Sri Lanka, that would be a concern. I think the fact that Joe Root scored a double 100, 180, and we still didn't post past 400. And no disrespect to that Sri Lanka side, but this is another level up against India. And I think that the fact that, we have to post 400. If we don't, we're not going to be in the game. So the other guys do have to step up. There are some good players there. There's some young players who are learning. They will be better for this experience of this tour. But again, this is this is about here and now. This is about delivering in this test match. So they've got to find a way. Obviously, it's great to have Ben Stokes back. He will be attacking. We'll see what Butler will do again with his reverse sweeps. But again, it all comes down to what Joe Root does. Again, it's a huge wicket if India can get Joe Root early. And it'll be interesting to match up to who will bowl at him straight away. He is our best player of spin, and probably the best player of spin we've ever had. And he generally, what English players struggle with is starting against spin. Joe Root generally starts against spin quite well. So whether they would start with the seamer, maybe sometimes his footwork against seamers can be a little bit stuck in the crease occasionally until he gets going. So it'll be fascinating to see what the match will be to him, because he's such a key wicket in this English lineup.
All right, it is a particularly stronger England side with the inclusion of Ben Stokes now, and of course Rory Burns returns at the top of the order. They'd welcome that call as well, and we'll keep an eye out on Josh Butler, who's only going to play one Test match in this series. I'll just go back to the Indian team to Gautam. There would have been one selection call to make, and you already touched upon it, Gautam, on if they were playing two seamers, whether Ishant Sharma with all his experience gets the nod, or whether Siraj, who had as impressive a debut series as anyone could have in Australia, and they've gone with Ishant. Now, would you have still gone with Siraj in spite of having all that wealth of experience of Ishant Sharma back?
Yes, I would have. The reason is, I've already mentioned the reason, because Ishant hasn't played any red ball cricket for a very long time. Straight IPL, after IPL he's got injured, and then he's played only T20 cricket. And that also, when you're playing at Chennai, where the conditions can be really tough, the weather can take a toll on you, and plus when you have to bowl 16, 17 overs a day, it's not like you've got the third seamer in your ranks and you can actually just go on to bowl 12 or 13 overs a day. You might have to bowl 15, 16 overs, plus that rhythm as well. It's always easy to bowl T20 in T20 cricket, but not in red ball cricket, where you got to make things happen. So I would have definitely actually had Ishant bowl a couple of more long spells in the nets, and probably had his bowling fitness up, and then gone with Siraj, because you might have to play three seamers with a pink ball at Motera. So I would definitely have built him for Motera, or probably for the second Test match, and gone with Siraj, because Siraj is coming after such a fabulous tour, and he's bowled those long spells in Australia as well. So would have given Siraj a go rather than Ishant Sharma. I know it's tough for Ishant Sharma, but that is where I would have gone with, especially when you're playing two seamers.
It's an interesting one. Bumrah's playing his first Test match in India, Belly. He's got plenty of experience elsewhere and otherwise in white ball cricket in India, but he's playing his first Test in India. Would that have played into the calculations that, all right, let's get the experience of Ishant Sharma in? I don't know how much you've seen of Mohammad Siraj, but he was a standout in Australia. You know enough of Ishant Sharma. Would he have always been the second choice seamer?
It's a really interesting call. I mean, again, it's nice to have that luxury that you're leaving out a very good player. I think I agree with all of it. I think firstly, like Bumrah, world-class player, those cricketers, top cricketers will find a way. I've got no problem that he'll be a standout bowler in this series. And I agree with what Gautam's saying there. It's not necessarily the playing, it's backing up spell after spell after spell. And if you've got to bowl 18 to 20 a day, then back it up with another Test match. But I'm sure, again, like England, India have got to be looking at this. Those two seamers aren't going to get through all 4 Test matches of workload. They're going to have to rotate at some point, and you can't always just play two seamers. So yeah, it's an interesting call. They've obviously gone with the experience of Ishant, who is a top bowler. But again, fascinating to see how the guys go up front with the new ball, and over time, do India occasionally open with a spinner, because that did cause England problems. In Sri Lanka, again, when the left arm spinner did open the bowling, whether that new ball just skidded on occasionally and the odd one holds. So I think there's a fair bit to discuss. It's not always going to be pace, certainly against the England openers. because they just don't see that at home. They don't see spin with the new ball or opening up. So I think there are options that India can use, not just the two seamers up front.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that's what we saw against Sri Lanka as well. They're very keen to hand the new ball to a spinner, and it did trouble in England's openers. There's no Zach Crawley in this game, but would you see that potentially happening? We'll probably get a glimpse of that before we wrap up. Ashwin taking the new ball on the first day of first test in Chennai.
Me, Ronak?
Yeah, Gautam.
I don't think so. I think they're going to start with the fast bowlers, and then probably Ashwin might just come into the spell very quickly. If there's nothing happening for someone like Ishant, Jasprit Bumrah will make things happen. He's that quality, irrespective of how the conditions. But if there is nothing for someone like Ishant Sharma, he might just get Ashwin very quickly, especially against Rory Burns, because obviously Ashwin bowls really well with the new ball against the left-hander, the one that comes straight on, and then obviously he plays both for the left LBW stuff as well. So Ashwin might just be in the attack very quickly. But one thing I'm a little surprised with, and I actually wanted to ask Ian about this, that not picking Moeen Ali. Moeen Ali's got a fabulous record against India. And whenever he's bowled against Indian batters, actually Indian batters have struggled against Moeen Ali. So probably had Moeen Ali for one of the batters, whether it was Dan Lawrence, because he can actually chip in with the bat as well. And plus a left-hand batsman who can bat, probably Ollie Pope could have batted at number 3, and then Moeen Ali could have batted at number 6 or 7, plus another bowling option when you're looking to bat first. So I wanted to ask what's his thoughts, because I was actually in my best England playing 11, Moeen Ali was always there with Leach and Dombis.
Well,
it's certainly been a discussion. Again, I think Moeen was unlucky. He was obviously ill and didn't play a part for Sri Lanka, and I think that possibly has played a part going into this Test match. He's just had no cricket under his belt. Bessers has obviously as well got 2 fifers. You would sit here and go, I think the outcome of 5 wickets looked probably better than how he actually delivered in the time, but you can't beat the fact that he got 2 5-wicket hauls against Sri Lanka. But I agree with you as well. I think Moeen's record against India, certainly in England, is fantastic. He probably, as many of the England bowlers, is not as good when we travel to India. But he's a world-class player, I do believe. And he also does balance up that side as well with his batting down the back end, and would offer more, I suppose, a better balance to the side. But I think England, again, have just looked at this. I think Lawrence was hard to leave out. Again, he looked like, as in, if a young player, he looked like he played spin particularly well. Crawley getting injured, I think that's thrown that up in the air a little bit. But I think as well, Pope has shown enough at home that he's a player for the future. He's a young player that England are going to give opportunity and time to. But again, it is a good discussion, really. And we'll see. And I do believe probably for me, Moeen Ali, I would probably play even ahead of Best, really, in my 11.
All right, it's time something we'll have to watch out for, how England go about the 11s in this series. They've taken this call on managing player workload quite seriously, so we're going to have a lot of in and outs in this England side as the series goes on. So India all set to take the field at home in Test cricket. They're going to be bowling first after losing the toss. Jasprit Bumrah all set for his first Test match at home. I don't know how many bowlers in the world, let alone in India, have played got 70-80 wickets in Test match cricket and not a single one at home. That's just been how they've wanted to use Jasprit Bumrah. Gautam, is it just a given that Bumrah will be successful or effective even in India, or is there something that he'll have to face as a bit of a challenge, having played only in South Africa and England and Australia and New Zealand, places that a fast bowler wouldn't mind playing if he was Indian?
100% he'll be successful. I have no doubts about it. And he's that kind of a quality as well, and very few bowlers in world cricket who can actually take the surface out of the game. It was just Jasprit Bumrah, Jofra Archer, Rabada, Pat Cummins. These guys will be successful in any conditions because the lengths he bowls and he makes things happen. And obviously India has actually managed him really well. Because you've got options and you know that how important foreign tours are when India travels abroad, how much scrutiny you are under as a player, as a team, that whether when you don't do well away from home, then people regard you just as a home bully or a home conditions bully. But with Jasprit Bumrah, whenever he's played overseas, whether it's in Australia, England, South Africa, he's done really, really well. So India's actually preserved him really well. Let's see how he goes. Whether he plays all the 4 Test matches, I would not play him on all the 4 Test matches. I would probably will play him here and then give him a rest and play him with pink ball, because we know that how pink ball behaves, especially under light. So Jasprit Bumrah plays the pink ball, and then let's see how he manages his load, because it's very different when you're playing overseas. You've got 3 seamers, so your workload is always a little lesser as compared to when you're only playing two seamers, especially if there's nothing for the spinners. You might have to bring back Jasprit Bumrah spell after spell when you're playing against Joe Root if he's in, so he might have to bowl those long spells in difficult conditions like in Chipok. So let's see how he manages. And plus, there's no doubt that he's not going to deliver. He will deliver in any series he plays, but how he manages his workload and how he manages those spells, we have to wait and watch, because he's never played only with two seamers. He's always played his test cricket with three seamers. So it's always how he will always have longer breaks. Whether he has that here, let's see.
Yeah, I mean, that Australia series was a test for everyone, right? There was always someone getting injured, so invariably you end up playing with one bowler less. But this is a challenge for Bumrah. It'll be very interesting to see. Now, Gautam already mentioned two of those names, and they're playing, or rather four of those names that take the surface out of it, or this world-class bowlers. And we're going to see two in the same game now. There is Bumrah and there is Jofra Archer. Yes, there's Ishant Sharma and Jimmy Anderson. Anderson's an all-time great. Ishant is approaching 100 test matches. There is an element of excitement to watch Jofra Archer, the fast bowler in India, Ian, on what will be his first test match. How do you think he'll go?
Yeah, well, again, as Gautam said, he's somebody that, again, when he gets the ball, you get the feeling, again, certainly when you watch him live at a game, that people love watching him bowl. He's got that type of energy around him. But there's no doubt he's fresh. He's been rested from the cricket he's played. And when he's firing and he's bowling at good pace, it makes this England side, in whatever format, a much, much better side. I'm looking forward to that challenge, against Kohli. I think that's going to be a fascinating one. He had a great battle with Steve Smith in the Ashes in England. Again, that extra pace, and he seems to just find his way. I think he's that kind of guy. He sort of looks for who's the best player, who's the player that I need to have a battle with, and I think he'll find that. Again, being part of a world-class cricketer is adapting to different conditions, and this is just another step on the way. Again, he's quite, even though he's really elevated his status in the game, he's still very inexperienced Test match bowler. But again, I'm just excited every time he's in the team. Again, he does try and make things happen, but we've got to manage him as well. Sometimes I think he bowls so many overs in England, but again, over time, we've got to manage his workload. But there's no doubt when he's fully fresh and raring to go, it's an exciting time.
Rory Burns and Dom Sibley walking out. Yes, Rory Burns has about 20-odd tests of experience behind him. But nerves at all coming to India? We know the sort of intimidation it can bring in cricket these days. They walk out on the first morning of a big test match series. Nerves at all, Ian?
Absolutely, in a good way as well. I think you want that. You need to have those nerves. You need those butterflies to go. And that's what makes you play at your best. But yeah, it's a big series for both. Dom Sibley is a younger player. I think he learns fast, so he learned quite quickly in Sri Lanka. This will be another challenge and a great experience for his career going forward. Rory Burns back in, didn't play in Sri Lanka, so they both want to start the series well. And again, when you win the toss on the best part of the pitch, they've got to go and make the most of it. But again, I think for England point of view, we've chopped and changed the opening partnership for a while. We've had attacking players. These two are old-fashioned Test match openers. They'll get in, they'll defend well, leave the ball. They're not the most attractive technical players in the world. It looks a bit awkward, but what they're both their strengths are is they'll back time if they get in. Especially Dom Sibley, he scores big runs at home, and hopefully that's exactly what they'll give England a platform for an exciting middle order of Root, Stokes, Pope, Lawrence, stroke players. But it needs a platform from these two to get through the new ball and certainly the first spell of the spinners. Yeah,
these two bat, and suddenly this is a very deep and quite an intimidating batting lineup with Josh Butler coming in no later than 7. Ishant Sharma with the new ball, no surprises, Gautam. And let's not forget, Ishant Sharma has been a sort of a bowler that's been reinvigorated in Test match cricket. He seems to have incredible numbers in the last couple of years. Be interesting to see if he can keep that going after such a long break at this stage of his career.
100%, and you got to keep improving as well. See, if you want to have a long international career, you got to keep improving, keep bowling better lengths as well, and that is what Ishant Sharma has done lately, and he's got all the rewards as well. And the reason why he's been so successful, because he's been able to change his length. He's tried bowling a little fuller. He's gone around the wicket to the left-handers, created that angle as well, and you got to take wickets as well, which is very important. So no surprise that he's starting off with the new ball, but let's see how he goes, what kind of a rhythm he bowls with. Yes, because India would look to get early wickets with the new ball. You don't want a situation where actually you've wasted the new ball. Jasprit Bumrah will look to take wickets, look to attack the stumps as well. Let's see what kind of a rhythm Ishant Sharma would be in, because English batters play very differently. Like how just Ian mentioned that both the openers will play time. If they manage to play time and if they manage to survive the first session, then it's going to be a platform set for all the middle order batsmen, and they'll be on their course to getting 350, 400. It's not like Australia who looks to attack early with the new ball with someone like David Warner and stuff. So there will always be an opportunity. When you're bowling against Dom Sibley and Rory Burns, they will leave a lot of balls, they'll defend a lot of balls. So you got to actually be able to create bold deliveries which can actually get you wickets rather than a batter making mistakes. So it's all about bowlers creating those chances now.
All right. Thank you very much, Gautam Gambhir, Ian Bell. We'll pick up this conversation in a couple of hours' time. Very good luck staying up, and make sure you have enough of those Americanos or those dark
Don't
coffees that
worry.
you're going. Yeah, I'm sure you'll be up
Don't worry.
watching. Rory Burns and Dom City. Gautam Gambhir will join us. So do join us on our lunchtime show. And England, of course, have won the toss. If you're just tuning in late, and we'll have you covered right through this India-England series on ESPN Cricket for Matchday, powered by Realme X7 5G and X7 Pro 5G. See you at lunch.